Moving on to Chapter 7, Section 3, how fights start. Now, how do fights start? How do arguments start? I mean, is it because two people don't agree, or multiple people don't agree on the same thing? Is there communication that is broken? Is gossip being done? So there's is there jealousy or vengeance being a reason why people argue or fights begin? So again, there's emotion usually behind when there's an argument, and there's always usually people not listening, or not agreeing to disagree, or just not agreeing, period, or someone trying to fight for what they believe in to the point where maybe violence can be involved. Sometimes people argue regarding revenge. Someone, did you wrong in whatever sense. They were talking about you, so you're going to get them back. A lot of times, arguments are because of emotions that they can't control or express in a healthy way. Communication's broken. You want to be heard. And sometimes it's basically just about rumors or jealousy or enviness. So you're going to be reading about how fights start on page 174. Sometimes people start arguments because their pride is hurt, or they were embarrassed of something, or something that happened to them. They're being very defensive, it's per se. Sometimes when people argue, it's just about who's being right in some senses. So you're moving on to like peer pressure when it comes to arguing. A lot of times kids want to fit in, even adults want to fit in. They feel pressure to do things that they don't want to do, or they just want to be cool, or they basically want to let others know that they're physically stronger than the individual, so they're going to attack you physically, or they're going to just continue fighting with you because they want to be heard, or they want their opinion put to come across. And it's okay if you want to debate about something, but you have to have mutual understanding and respect if someone may have a different point of view of you, and that's okay. So you want to make sure you understand who your friends are. Are your friends the ones that are the instigators that kind of like get things stirring up and then they run away? Are they the friends that, start the gossip and they spin all the gossip around, and then, they escalate the conversation, or they get involved when they're not supposed to be involved, or, she said, he said stuff? Are your friends bystanders? Are the ones that are just listening and are egging you on to argue with somebody? A lot of times it's also about control. They want to control the situation, the person. And again, having a discussion with somebody or not agreeing with someone's okay, but when it gets to the point where you are constantly yelling and fighting and putting people down or making someone feel like crap, sometimes arguing is not the best way. Sometimes you might need to take a little time out. Like say your siblings, you're always arguing and fighting about something. Maybe you just need to say, hey, I'm giving myself a break. I'm going to go and come back. You need to make sure that you understand what the person's saying. You may have to talk to them about boundaries. Like, hey, you hurt my feelings when you say this. I feel this way. If it's just a physical fight, for whatever reason, that's not a good way to go. But again, you want to make sure that when you are debating about something, you hear that person's point of view, they hear your point of view. You may not like to hear what they have to say, and vice versa, but you should respect their point of view. Sometimes people agree to disagree. There's been many times in my career that, we'll put a pin on it, we'll come back to it later. You want to make sure that, you're not screaming at the individual, because once people start screaming, no one's listening. So you want to make sure that, you are trying not to get so emotional, because when you argue with emotion, no one listens to you. No one's going to listen to that crazy person screaming. All right, you got to be calm. And of course, if there's an argument happening, or a debate, or a misunderstanding, you may not solve it. You may not have a resolution. You may have to go back to a later time, or reflect on how you would have handled it. So moving on to section 4, how to prevent fights or arguments. So how do you prevent it? I mean, sometimes things are better left unsaid. You may keep it in your mind, not say it out loud. Some people, that doesn't mean you're less of a person if you choose not to argue. all right? Sometimes it's better not to, because the person who's going crazy and screaming all over the place, you look back at them, you're like, wow, you're not all there. You're screaming over something, and after a while you're arguing and you forget what you're arguing about. So you want to make sure that you prevent any fights. Maybe do what you're supposed to do. Like think about it's like if you're at home and you're supposed to have some chores to do and you're arguing with your siblings, maybe just don't argue. Just do what you're supposed to do. Like as a parent, my kids have chores, not a lot, but they have some. So when I come home from work, I'm expecting those chores to be done at a certain time. And please make sure they're done. But of course, if they're not, then that's more stress. And I don't want to go in the house and scream and argue and cause a fight. So just do what you're supposed to do. And then, of course, there won't be a problem. But if there is, you also have to be flexible. Like, well, why didn't you get the chore done? Or why did this happen? Find out information, background behind it. You can only control what you can. You can't control other people's feelings or thoughts, So for me, if I get upset or angry or frustrated, I take a breath and I try to think, well, what can I do to make this situation calmer? Or what can I do to not have an argument with my kids? Do I want to go in the house and nag at them because certain things aren't done at a specific time? Or do I need to say, hey, why didn't you get this done? And they go, well, I was doing this and that. Okay, well, then please make sure it's done. It's also your tone, how you talk. Gossip is not good. You want to, not hang out with people who are stirring up crap. It's not cool. Violence is not the way. When you are going to confront someone, make sure you're confronting them in a way that is not defensive or attacking. If you made a mistake, own it. I mean, I make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. So if I offended someone, you need to apologize and own it. If you're gonna, backpedal and lie about it, it's not a good character of who you are as a person. Stay calm in situation. Screaming, no one's listening. Okay. You may have to learn to negotiate. Well, okay, if you need to do this, then I need you to do that. You need to have almost like a mutual understanding. But be in mind, you may not always have a resolution, but you should be calm, respect the individual's point of view, even though you may not agree with it. Like, I think like in coaching, there's some coaches that I've worked with in the past and deal with that I may not believe in their philosophy or maybe not the way they run their program, but that doesn't mean they're bad people. And that doesn't mean that mine's better, but mine just works better for me. So you have to learn to compromise, especially if you're starting a new program with another person. If you have a co-partner or people that you work with. Even high schoolers have, coworkers. You may not like that individual personally, but the task is to get whatever job done, and you have to learn to get along, all right? Helping others to avoid a fight. So like we talked about meditation before, when you're trying to reduce some stress, you can mention like, going to a quiet place, reflect on what the situation is, the role of a bystander. If it escalates, maybe somebody needs to be the neutral person. For example, if two people are not agreeing on something, you might need that third person to be the mediator, right? Like, okay, Susie, Joe, this is what happened. This is your point of view of the situation. Okay, Bob, I'm just throwing names out. This is your point of view. This is what you think. This is what you're feeling. And make sure hear each other and give each other time to talk without interruption. And then maybe, because there's a mediator, someone who's biased, who's not going to sway on one side or the other, will see a different perspective of things, may enlighten the individuals, and they may not be fighting or arguing anymore. All right. If you need to, get an adult involved. If it gets to the point where you don't feel safe, or the argument escalates to the point where it's affecting you emotionally, physically, and mentally, you're feeling ostracized or going to the fact of being bullied or harassed, you may need to get an adult involved or a counselor. Okay? So that's section 3 and 4. And then we'll be moving on. Have a good day.